Hi, class. For data visualization, it's very important to know how to prepare the data, to clean the data, and to make it ready to be used in the visualization. Most of the time, it's about filtering and transforming the information. So I'll give you a real life example, and let's go to see how this might work. First, we have to look at the example of in this visualization, if I click on play, we see the timeline of the three Scandinavian countries and the number of World Heritage Sites according to UNESCO, each country at different years. Norway was very much in the lead, and then Sweden caught up, and Denmark is also catching up. The data set looks like this. The data table is three countries, the image of their flags, and the running total, the number of sites cumulatively at each year. So the starting point I want to get us is begin with is to get the raw data set from the UNESCO website, and they have an Excel sheet with each of the rows as an individual UNESCO World Heritage Site and the year or the date it was inscribed or designated as a site. So there's about, I'm sure, over 1,000 sites around the world. But how do we get from here to this data table? Let's do that first in Excel, then we'll use Tableau. And after we use Tableau, we'll use ChatGPT. And after that, we'll use Python code to get this table to transform the data. And we'll use the tools to produce the same results, which is, again, this flourish data table right here from originally this very big data table of all the sites. Okay, so we know we want only three of the countries, and we want to count how many sites are in those countries at every year. So first, because this data table is arranged as individual sites, we want to pivot it. So we need to do a pivot table and pivot it by the country. So let's go to Insert, Pivot, Create, and we want to take the country. In this case, the variable country is, let me actually go one step back. I was highlighting this. I don't want to highlight this. I want to either not highlight anything or I want to highlight the entire data table. So either way, let's highlight only the data in this. That's Control A. Insert pivot table. Okay. Now I have the titles or the variable names, the headings of each of the columns. The name that UNESCO uses is the state name, and EN indicates it's in English. So I drag this into the rows right underneath the rows. Now I have all the countries. I want to count how many sites each of the countries have. So I go to, this is not intuitive, I go to the ID of each of the sites. The ID is unique, and I count how many IDs by dragging the ID into values, right underneath values. It's summing them, which is not what I want. I don't want the IDs to be summed. I want it to be counted. So I use, let's say, count. Okay. This is a pivot table, and it has just two columns, the country and the sum. I would like to show the across the years, the date as columns. So right here, there's a columns area. So I'm going to drag date inscribed into columns. So date inscribed into the columns. And now I have each year and the number of sites for that year. So this is not the cumulative, it's just the net, the number of new sites designated in that year. Okay, so this is a useful pivot table. I could filter the countries by going to, um, let me see, I can add a filter. You can either drag the state name here, or you can use this drop down either way. State name English here. And I'm just gonna clear everything and type in those three countries. Denmark, Sweden. Notice some of the sites have multiple countries. Should I include them or should I not? For the sake of simplicity, let's not include the multi-course transboundary sites. Only sites that's solely in that country. Just for the sake of simplicity, it might not be the right way to count. Norway. Okay, so we have three countries filtered now. This is very close to getting to this final view. The difference is that this is cumulative, and here it's just net each year's new sites. And many years have zero new sites. Okay. So what we want to do, just the way I would do it, is I would copy the values in here and just create a new tab. And in this new tab worksheet, I go to paste the values only, paste special values only. I delete the stuff I don't need, for example, the first row and the last row. And now I need to create a formula. I also don't care about the total number of sites. I go to delete. Okay, so the calculation will be, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to copy here and just create a new data table by adding each one to the next one. So I know, let's say Norway has two here, so it's going to be, this will be equal to 2. That's fine. Autofill, we don't have to. Okay. And then now this should be 2 plus 1. So I'm going to say equals this plus the previous number here. When it comes to autofill, I'm going to ignore that, not accept autofill. So if I drag this across, let's see what happens. It didn't work. Okay, so I'm going to have to say this equals this value plus this value. That's right. Okay, and maybe now it's trained to do this correctly. There's no new sites around here. Let's keep dragging to the end. There's 7 sites total. I think it's working. If this works, maybe it'll work for the other rows as well. I'm just gonna do the dragging of the copying the, hopefully you'll copy it. Okay, we'll see. So maybe I take all of this and drag it up one and drag it. I think that looks good. Could be wrong, but let's do a manual check. 1, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. I think that's pretty close. Yeah. 10, 7, 2. And that's just how we would create this in Excel. You copy this and then put it into the flourish. Okay, 10, 8, 15. The reason Sweden is lower is because we did not include the multi-country transparent sites. Otherwise, it's slightly higher. And 10, 8. And I believe Norway will also benefit from the transboundary sites. Now that we've done this, let's go to Tableau, and I'll show you how to do this in Tableau. So the first thing is you could actually save this. If you have the Excel file, you can just use the Excel file, or you can download this as a, I like to use CSV, comma, separated values. We'll explain later at different video why we use CSV, but let's save this as a CSV. It's now in my local computer. I'm gonna switch to show you Tableau, and let's move to Tableau. So in Tableau, I'm gonna open a text file. It says connect a text file. Find the one I just downloaded and open that one. Okay, here we are. This is all the data. I go to here. Same list of variables as we saw. These are the column headings. Tableau likes to separate them into these dimensions and then these um, uh, dimensions and measures. So these are the measures. The dimensions are pretty much like categorical data, and the measures are some continuous data you can do mathematical operations with, like the number of hectare acres in area, the days. I would like to use day inscribed as a dimension. Dates have to be a dimension. So let's change this by choosing date. And then now that it's a date, it's up here. Day inscribed, and it's a calendar icon, so it's a date. So we know we want the dates, drag dates into the columns because these are going to be the dates. We know we want the countries in the rows. So instead of pivot table, you just drag the state name English into the rows. Or you can drag it to the left, but let's drag it into the rows. And then we want the values. So we're going to do a count of the number of items. So um, you can drag this into here, but it's going to be very messy. If you drag the ID into here, it's not really going to work. Let's actually undo that. Let's create a count of this. There's a few ways to create a count. So you could go to default. You could, um, the shortest cut is to make this a string, because the ID is really kind of a string. It's not a numerical number. It's not continuous. You drag it into the middle. Okay. Drag it into the label maybe. Okay. And then you do the drop down, choose measure, and do count. Okay. So this is actually just a count using Tableau of the net every year for these countries. It looks a little weird, but that's okay. All the formatting is strange. Now what we want to do is to do the running total of the count. So right now, I believe you can do a quick table calculation, get the running total. Voila, this is the running total. We're almost there. We need to filter for those three countries. So we drag, the state name English. That's the variable name, state name English. You drag it into the filters box. State name English, filters box. Remove everything, find those three countries, and check them off. So first Denmark, and then Norway. No, we can also search through here. And then Sweden. Okay, apply. So here we go. We have all these values. If I want to copy these into Flourish, all I have to do is go to Worksheet, copy, Course tab. Copy it. And then I have these values and I'm done. If you want to format it a little more nicely, you can convert this into discrete. Go to click on the down arrow on this variable, choose discrete. You can also make a data table out of this by clicking the data table. Oh, that changed something. Maybe we don't want to do that. Undo. Okay. But now that we copy this, let's see if it works. We can also X worksheet and export it as an Excel file. Let's just look at how the Excel file looks like. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in, show it, change the screen to see the Excel file. So this is the Excel file that was generated. Same thing as Excel if we had done the Excel. Now you can copy this into, let's move here back to the browser, into here. It would have worked fine too. Yeah. So pretty close. Okay. Okay. The calculations seem a little off, but we can fix that if we work very closely on this and troubleshoot it. Okay, now let's move on to the next tool. With ChatGPT, you just upload the CSV file or the Excel file. So you upload a file. This is the CSV file. You could have used the original Excel file. That's fine too. Okay, you ask it. Um, First, you ask the question, is, you can ask directly and challenge it to say, I want a table of the running of the size, not Norway, Sweden. Let's challenge it and try to see if you can figure this out. If it does, great, you can copy it and put it into Flourish. If not, we'll have to give it more specific examples. This is pretty good, actually. Now we need to rotate it, so just ask it to rotate it or transpose. The technical term is transpose. So please transpose this and put the years in columns. Okay, that was easy. Great. It even offers you, do you want to also clean this up to an Excel file? Yes, I do. Okay, would you like to give a transpose in a cut and press a CSV? Yes, that's fine. I can copy this and paste it into Excel. Okay, so copy the, well, I think if I copy code, it should work. You can copy this into a text editor and save it as a, okay, that's fine. But basically, this is done. Python code to do the same exact data transformation and filtering. So first go to colab.research.google.com, which is where we write Python code. It's the environment. Let's create a new notebook. And a notebook for writing code is great because you can write one line of code at a time and run it and see what happens. So the first line of code, before we even write that line code, we have to open the folder and upload the file into this Colab environment. So we're going to click on open the folder, click on upload a file to the folder, and click on the file from your computer. And now you have this file. Already it has this kind of AI feature. So this add to Gemini. Let's click on that and say, load this file into a data. Right. Data frame is Python's fancy way of saying a data table. So you have to use the word data frame, and the name or the variable of this data frame or the name typically is df. Just it indicates this is stored in the df variable. The library it's using is called pandas. So that's why it's importing the pandas, and then it's reading the CSV file, and then you'll print out and display the df, whatever data is in there. And the head parentheses shows us the first 5 items. So if we run this, we should be able be able to see the first 5 World Heritage Sites. It's the same exact data table as the Excel sheet. Now that we know this entire data is in this data frame, we want to do the pivot action. So we say create a new pivot table using the state underscore name in as the index, the keyword here, this is the index. So instead of each World Heritage Site as an index in the first column, the states or the countries will be in the first item in each of the rows. Okay. For each of the columns, we need to use the date inscribed, meaning the year. So date inscribed as column, and the value will be a count of how many IDs for each of the year for that country. So we're going to say ID.NO as values. We have to indicate that it's a count of ID as values. And we say, you can say name this new data as DF countries. So we just pivoting, creating a pivot table. Let's see if it actually shows us and displays the pivot table we want to see, just like if we have RAND. Okay, so this looks promising. It's showing NAN. That's actually good because there's no new sites being added. But if there is one new site added, it shows 1.0. So that's for whatever reason, it moves this cell above this. So I'm gonna just moving the cells around, moving this to the top. This is an empty cell. I can delete it. I don't need it. This is how delete is. If you want to create a new cell, you just create code. Okay, so in this line of code, we're gonna actually just filter for the countries we want. So filter for 3 countries, which are Denmark, Norway, Sweden. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if it removes all the other countries, all the other rows, and leaves us with 3. Okay, this looks good. Again, we realize that this is the incremental new sites for that each of the years. We want to do the running total. So let's ask it to calculate the running total for each of the cells. And for this new data frame, what was it called? DF filter countries, DF, let's call it DF filtered countries running. Oh, okay. Let's see if this final table gets us exactly what we need. Let's accept and run. So you happen above here. So this looks good. Well, actually, the NA is confusing. It has 7, and then somewhere in Sweden, we don't know what year, it doesn't have the highest. But you should, okay, I think all the NAs are confusing. So the good news is you can insert cells anywhere and redo these commands. So we're gonna go back to this step where you produce the pivot table. And in this cell, we're gonna say, replace all the NANs with 0, because it's easier to calculate running totals with zeros rather than NAN. So replace NAN in, what's the name of the table, DF countries, with 0. And then we'll reissue the same request. Okay, so now it's all zeros, right? Now let's say, so the DF country, let's say, make a copy of DF countries for DF countries running total. replace the values in each cell with the running total. Let's see if this does it. So it's fine to make mistakes. You just have to go back a few steps. Okay. Okay, it's looking promising. The total, oh no, the total is still 2. Oh, because we have seen these multi and we did not filter. Okay, so that's filtered by country. I went one step too far, but now you can issue the command now that we have running total. Over here, we can say filter for 3 countries. And wait, sweet. We're very close to finishing. If it gets us the right total, the right values, 10, 7, 13, very close, good enough. We know we don't need these mistaken cells. We can delete them. Okay, just to keep things organized. This one, that's fine. Okay, so let's do one last step. Save this as a CSV file so we can download it. Download, what's the name? The filter countries running. That's a CSV file. Another thing you can do is you can actually ask Python, since this is your Google account, you can ask Python to create a brand new Google Sheet with this data table. So let's actually try that. Let's create a new line of code and say, create a new Google Sheet for this table. And you'll write all the code. And so that's how things work. We're going to run this line of code, which generates the CSV, and nothing's going to happen. It's just going to download it into the computer. So you'll be in my download folder once I run this. Okay, the next line is generate the Google Sheet. Even though it's your own account, you have to give it permission to write to your Google Sheets account. So I'm going to say yes and click to some agreements. Yes, yes, continue, continue. And just to show you that this has worked, I'm going to open my Google Sheet and show you that. Filter country running total. This is the Google Sheet. And if I go all the way to the end, I'll get the final values. Okay, so I'll stop here and we'll stop here. And hopefully you enjoy this 4 different ways of creating this data set.